Can you hear that? It's a weird sciencey fact that boggles my mind. Whew, I've drank a whole pot of coffee this morning and I am ready to make your brain hurt about sound because that shit is way more complicated than I thought it was. I think most of us take sound for granted because aside from sight, it's probably the sense that we rely on most to interact with our world. And so there's certain things that we just know are true about sound. Like it has a specific speed, the speed of sound, Mach 1. And the more dense a material that sound has to travel through is, the more it's going to slow it down, right? The more muffled it's going to be. Except none of that's true. Sound actually travels at lots of different speeds. The speed of sound is just the speed of sound through air. And not even all air, just air that's a specific temperature and humidity. And then, as the material sound has to move through gets denser, sound gets faster. It moves 4.5 times faster through water than it does through air. And then you're like, but wait, when something sounds muffled, we always relate it to sounding like it's underwater. And you can't hear somebody scream underwater. We all tried it as kids. It's not possible. That's true, but that's not because of sound. That's because of you. Your ears just suck at hearing things in water because they're designed to hear things in air. And your voice sucks at projecting noise in water because it's designed to make noise in air. By now, you might be saying, sure, that sort of makes sense. You know, air is technically a fluid. Water is a fluid. You can see waves in water and sounds are waves. But surely the game changes once it gets dense enough to be a solid. You drop a rock on your driveway and there's no ripples. And because solids don't move very easy, it's got to be hard for sound to move through them. Obviously not. Sound can travel up to 15 times faster through a solid than it does through air. Because here's the thing is nothing's really technically solid. Everything is just held together by hopes and dreams and the will of the universe. Everything, including us, is made up of tiny little atoms that aren't even technically touching each other. And everything is mostly empty space, even like rocks. It's just that solids have their atoms huddled closer together than things like liquids or gas, with the atoms are more spread out. And sound is kind of like dominoes. The closer the dominoes are stacked together, the faster they're going to hit the next one when you tip them over. And the further apart they are, the slower they're going to fall. And that's why this works the way it does. The dominoes, which are the atoms, are really close together in a solid and a lot further apart than they are in the air. So when a pressure wave, which is what a sound wave is, hits the atoms in a solid, they don't have to travel very far to hit the next atoms and pass that pressure wave along. Where in air, they have to travel a lot further, which means the sound moves a lot slower. And the speed in which it travels through is also affected by elasticity. Something like rubber, for example, can deform a lot with only a little bit of energy input, so it absorbs a lot of that energy of the sound wave passing through it. Something like steel that's very rigid, very efficiently transfers that sound energy. Now you're probably like, nah, you're pulling my chain, because when I close my window, I can't hear my neighbors yelling at each other about who didn't take the trash out quite as loudly as when it's open. And this is true. It's really obvious that windows and doors and walls do a lot to deaden sound. So if sound travels better through solids than it does through air, it should have no problem going from the windows to the walls till the sweat dropped down my... Sorry. And the reason it doesn't is Newton. Well, his laws anyway. When sound energy is traveling through the air and it impacts another medium, it doesn't effectively transfer all of that energy. I mean, it's literally running into a brick wall. Since the wall is a lot denser than the air, it's a lot easier for that sound energy to bounce off the wall and go back into the air. That's why you can get echoes. So only a small portion of that energy is actually transferred into the new medium, your wall or your window or your door. And it'll travel through that medium really well, but then it's got to change mediums again back to air that's inside your room. And it doesn't do that very well, and a lot more of that energy is lost in that next transfer, sometimes all of it, so you can't hear it at all. This is the reason that you got to stick your ear directly on the door to hear what the gossip is between your boss and his secretary. And this is where this video should be done, but now we got to talk about air again, because gases don't like playing by the rules. Like, there was very simple rules set forward and they couldn't follow the damn instructions. Now, first off, humid air is less dense than dry air. Just let that wreck your whole perception of reality for a second. The water molecules have to displace air molecules for the air to be humid, and water molecules weigh less than oxygen and nitrogen molecules, which is what air mostly is. So thick, heavy, humid air is not actually thick or heavy. Dry, cold air is the densest air, so sound should move a lot faster through that than it does through hot, humid air. But nope, gases have no interest in following the rules, so the less dense a gas is, the faster sound will move through that. In fact, sound will move faster through hot helium than it will through cold air. And this is because as things heat up, and this happens most dramatically with gases, their particles start to move faster. The more jacked up on Mountain Dew the atoms in gas are, the less dense it becomes. But they're also ready to come at you like a spider monkey. So because they're already all full of energy, they jump way faster at their neighbors when they hit with that sound wave than when they're cooled off. Does your brain hurt yet? Good, because we're not done. Because Air was then like, yeah, I get that we wrote our own rules, but we're not going to follow those either. You ever notice on still, cold days, you can hear sound from a long, long ways away? Way better than you can hear it on hot, humid days, you know, on the days that you should be able to hear it better according to the rules that gases wrote for themselves. This is why. On cold days, the coldest air is closest to the ground because cold air sinks. So there's a layer of slightly warmer air above us. Now, this isn't the best analogy, but you know how when your car has a low tire, it wants to pull in the direction of that low tire? That's because that low tire is actually traveling slower than the faster tire, and therefore it pulls the car towards that slower moving tire. Kind of similar. The slower moving sound through the cold air pulls those sound waves away from the warm air higher up. Sound normally likes to move out in every direction. Like when you drop a pebble in the water and the waves go out in all 360 degrees, sound does the same thing. This is why if you yell through a cone, it projects the sound in a certain direction and people can hear you further away. Basically, that's what this pocket of cold air is doing. It's just acting as a megaphone. It's keeping that sound energy close to the ground and not letting it dissipate up into the atmosphere in every which direction. And that is why you can hear sound from further away on a cold day, even though the sound is moving slower because it's going through denser air, even though sound normally goes faster through denser things, except for in gases because they play by their own rules. And why sound moves faster through water than it does through air, and why it moves even faster through solid rock than it does through even water. And now my head hurts and I can't tell if it's because of all the caffeine or if it's because this is just so damn mind-boggling.